Uh, Thank you, everyone, for coming to this event. It is an exciting opportunity to learn about 3 research projects that are working towards good lives for people with learning disabilities. I will be passing on to Diana and Lisa in a moment, who will tell you more about the research network. I want to start by introducing myself and telling you about a movement for change called Good Lives that help inspire the research network. I'm the co-founder of Learning Disability England. Before this, I founded People First in England, and that was back in 1984. I've been a self-advocate for over 37 years. I'm the membership engagement lead at Learning Disability England. I'm also the self-advocacy spokesperson. I'm excited to chair this event. This is where it all began. I'm now going to tell you about Good Lives, building change together. It began in Birmingham back in February of 2020, just before the pandemic. And I will be going over the slides. And you can see here, there's a lot of people contributing. We had I think about 30 or 40 types of ideas, and there were all these flip charts on the wall, and people put in post-it notes. We dwindled it down to about 6 chapters. Well, this is where it all began in Birmingham. How the framework is laid out. This work and what people told us was important to them to lead a good life formed the basis of the Good Lives framework. This is a document that brings together people's thoughts and ideas about what it will take for everyone with a learning disability to be able to live a good life. There are 6 chapters at the moment. These were the top 6 chapters people told us were important. We hope people will work together to add more. How the framework is laid out, each chapter says what the UN Convention says, what people with learning disabilities have said needs to change, and 3, what people said would change things. The chapters are the right support, a home, self-advocacy and advocacy, communication and staying connected, contribution and paid jobs, to love and be loved. There are other people working on other chapters, one on health, one on about transition, and the other one on transport. Those are the other ones that hopefully meet. If you want to find out more about Good Lives, you just go to this www.learningdisabilityengland.org.uk/welcome/our-work-good-lives/. Yes, thank you for listening. Thank you. It's now over to Diana and Lisa.
So I just wanted to say a few things about the Kent, Surrey and Sussex Learning Disability Community of Practice. Myself and Daniel Marsden, and I'm sure others are here today who are part of our steering group for the Community of Practice. This is just a group of local people across Kent, Surrey and Sussex who care about people with learning disabilities and making sure they experience good health, well-being and good health services. The community aims to help people with learning disabilities and their allies to live healthy, safe and fulfilled lives. So in many ways, It has similarities with the Good Lives framework. And in fact, the community is supporting the Good Lives Research Network, and we'll say more about that in a moment. We have a steering group that meets monthly, and you can get in touch with Daniel Marsden or myself if you'd like to find out more about getting involved in the community of practice. You can also visit our website where you can join to receive a blog. You can follow us on Twitter, and there's a closed Facebook group as well. Diana, over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, we just thought we'd do a little bit of an introduction about where the Good Lives Research Network came from before moving on into the presentations. And I'm going to talk about the beginnings, and Lisa's going to talk about the next steps, if you like. So the research began, my name's Diana Ramsey, I should say. I work in Sussex Partnership, NHS Foundation Trust, and I had the privilege of spending a year with the Applied Research Collaboration in Kent, Surrey and Sussex last year as part of a Darcy Fellowship. And as part of that, we were thinking as a collaboration about how we connect, really, particularly with groups of people within the population who perhaps have had limited access to having an equal partnership in research. And perhaps had a lot of a history where research has been done too, rather than done in conjunction with, in collaboration and participation and partnership. And we thought about people with the learning disabilities, because of my background of working with people with learning disabilities. And we recognised really that actually there are not many ways for people to hear the voice and hopes of people with a learning disability around research within Kent, Surrey and Sussex. And that we wanted to sort of question how then can we do the work around having nothing about us without us if we weren't hearing and having opportunities to connect with people. And we also recognised working in lots of organisations, whether it's universities or local authorities or NHS organisations, that it's very easy for us to not necessarily know what each other are doing as well, and charities and in all sorts of sectors. And so we were thinking, is there a way to better connect so we know what each other are doing and we can learn from one another? And most importantly, perhaps learning about research findings so that actually the good lives that we're trying to work to create in conjunction and partnership with people with a learning disability can be delivered, because we hear about what's gone on in terms of research and learn from it and can apply it in our work. So they were some of the sort of thoughts that we had within the collaboration. And we got together as a small group of people. So it was very much a clumsy co-design with the people that we had available. And so we got together with Sammy, it's lovely to see you today, and Louise from BMIX, with Lisa, Anna and David, who are here today from the different universities in Kent, Surrey and Sussex, from Tony and Helen, who are also here today, who work as professionals supporting people with learning disabilities in the region. And we obviously had the support from the community of practice in Kent, Surrey and Sussex. And we, as you can guess from the title, we were inspired enormously by the work that Gary's talked about in relation to the Good Lives work. And so that sort of provided a bit of a foundation for us in terms of how we then could contextualize and put into to think about some of the work that we're doing and make sure it does in this initial stages start to reflect what is important to people with a learning disability. And so the ARC within KSS, the Applied Research Collaboration, it hosts the network, and we sort of launched it in Learning Disability Week last year. So that was really exciting. And as with all things, it takes a while to grow and to develop. And so and I left the ARC and so handed over to Lisa to kindly lead, who continues to work within the Applied Research Collaboration. And I'm going to hand over to her to look at what's next.
Thanks, Diana. So in preparing for today's event, I was meeting with Gary to talk through what Gary would have to say about the Good Lives Network, and how we wanted the event to go. And Gary very rightly reminded me in the way one would expect a self-advocate to do but action is needed as well as talking. So today is about talking and sharing research, which is important, but we do need action as well. So we want to start to do some work in the area to understand what research is needed to support good lives for people with learning disabilities. We also want to do some work to help people to develop skills to be part of research, so that they can work equally with researchers who are in universities. We want to think about researching together, so putting our membership, people in our membership in touch to start planning and doing research to support good lives. As the first next step towards this, we hope to share a survey with our network members and others to help with planning some of these actions. We hope that you will like to join the Good Lives Research Network and to be part of these conversations and the action that is very much needed. So you can join us and be part of research. So we have a network joining form, and we will try and put the link in the chat, as well as having it on the screen. You've got a QR code there that if you have a smartphone, you can scan to bring up the link to the joining form. But if you don't want to do that, you can contact the Good Lives Network at the email address here. So we really hope that this will be something that you would like to hear more about and to join in and be part of, to make research a more equal place for people with learning disabilities. Thank you. So Gary, back to you for inviting questions, I think.
Yes, we now invite any questions you might have for Diana and Lisa. Please raise your hand or add to the chat if you have any questions. We will try and get around as many people as we can in 5 minutes. That may not be sound long, but it will just go quickly. Lisa and Diana are going to help me by looking out for people's hands and reading the question from the chat. I'm now going to pass on to Tony and Shalim, who will talk about their co-production project on recovery colleges. Shalim is co-researcher and Tony is a clinical psychologist with an interest in research. It's over to you, Tony and Shalim.
So, hi everybody, I'm Tony Leverton and I'm a psychologist. I work in Brighton and Hove with people with learning disabilities. And today, Shalim and I will be talking to you about the very early stages of a project that we've been developing, which is looking at peer support and recovery colleges for people with learning disabilities who also experience mental health difficulties. Do you want to say hello, Shalim?
Hi, my name's Shalim. I'm part of the Peer Support and Recovery College with Tony. So I've been working with them for quite a while on this research presentation.
Right, so just talk to you a little bit about some of the terms that we're using, because I'm not sure that everyone would have come across them. So peer support is when you get help from somebody who's just the same as you. And this could be in your everyday life, or it could be when a peer supporter is paid to help somebody. Recovery colleges are mental health colleges, and they do courses for people with mental health difficulties. And the difference about recovery colleges is that all of the courses are co-produced with people with lived experience of mental health difficulties. And they're called recovery colleges because they're all about feeling better when you have a mental health difficulty. And this isn't necessarily about going back to a place where you were before you had a mental health difficulty or having no symptoms. Recovery is much more about learning to live alongside your mental health difficulty. So the idea for this research project for me came from my own experiences of running a recovery college course alongside people with a person with learning disabilities, with a peer trainer. And I just had a brilliant experience doing this and found that the peer trainer got a lot from it. And the fact that they were in a leadership position seemed to be such a powerful thing for themselves, but also for the people coming, the students of the recovery college. So it really got me interested in studying recovery colleges some more, and to think about how we could help people with learning disabilities use recovery colleges more often, because I think at the moment, on the whole, people aren't so much across the country. So Shalim's just going to talk a little bit about his own experiences of being a peer supporter.
So being a peer supporter can be different ways. I've been a researcher for expert experience. I've also been a travel buddy resourcer, so taking a young person to their placement. I've also done a lot of public talking in mental health and learning disability. I've also written 2 articles, one on the COVID aspect, on diversity on the South Asian community with folk, and another article on making choices in their own homes with community living. So that they should both be online soon. I can send you the link as well.
The one on community living is definitely out and brilliant. So, like I said, this is very early stages of research, and we're really keen for, like Lisa was saying, for people to be involved quite early on in the project. So what we have done so far is had some engagement sessions with me and Shalim and 2 other expert peer supporters with learning disabilities who have experience of supporting people with mental health difficulties. So we've met 4 times online and 1 time in person, actually, in London, I forgot to say. And we wanted to know what peer supporters thought about mental health and recovery, because recovery can mean different things for different people. We also wanted to know, how is it that peer support works? What are the key ingredients? And what support do peer supporters themselves need to do a good job as peer supporters? And the idea is that getting some of this information will help us design a research project to find out how we can help people with learning disabilities use recovery colleges more. So we all decided, we spoke and we spoke about what mental health meant to us. So we thought that mental health is about how you're feeling in your mind, if you're happy or anxious. And the group also thought that it can mean basically not having some experiences that are good. Having some bad experiences can cause mental health. And we spent mental health difficulties, and we spent some time thinking about all the different things that can cause mental health difficulties. And those ranged from having a chemical imbalance in your brain to some psychological things like feeling stress and overwhelmed. And then lots and lots of social experiences we spoke about, like feeling lonely and being kind of picked on, and negative stories in the media, all having an effect on mental health. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything on that slide, Shalim.
No, that's it. That's great. I mean, that's all added on top of that.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms of recovery, the group, and like I said, recovery can mean different things for different people. And on the whole, people have struggled in learning disability services to take on recovery thinking. So I was really keen to find out what these expert peer supporters had to say about what recovery meant to them. So what they said was, it's more about living alongside your mental health difficulties, rather than expecting your difficulties to go away. So you'll have good days and you'll have bad days, and that's just fine. And we also said that recovery was about continuing to learn and learning to help yourself and learning different coping skills. So those could be going out for a walk or listening to music or phoning a friend, but it was all about learning those things that you know help you feel okay, even if you're having a bad day. A big part of recovery for our group was feeling connected with other people, and that could be just finding a place or a group of people where you feel like you belong, or it could be making sure you get the right people around you who can give you support. So those could be professionals or support workers or whoever it is that can offer real practical support. And then we also thought a big part of recovery was feeling hopeful and proud of who you are. And we kind of acknowledge that it's quite a difficult place to arrive to. I'm not sure everyone always feels proud of who they are. But we felt like actually if you can work towards that position of acceptance and pride, and that was part of the recovery experience. Was there anything else, Shalim, from your perspective?
No, no, that's all. That's fantastic. I think that's the most important thing. The last question is crucial. Just, you know, anyone else. I think it's also like a small goal that you can step to.
Sorry, say that bit again, Shalim.
I think that's like a small goal that you can achieve by yourself, and you know.
That's right. So setting small goals and feeling good about achieving those can be really important as well. Yeah. Okay, so then we spoke about what is it that peer support does? How does it work? So we thought the key thing was lived experience. So that is having the same experiences or similar experiences to other people. And part of that was giving some examples of your own life and telling stories about your own experiences. That's part of lived experience. It's also giving advice that you've learned along the years, over the years, and showing people by doing it yourself as well. So being a role model. And were there any kind of thoughts, or do you remember anything from the group, Shalim, about any of those points?
I think just kind of showing that from my point of view, me having 3 great people to show me being a great man, but also being a good person in society we live in, and being respectful, that it could lead you into a good life and journey, meet more interesting people and support them in the right way, in the right course as well, and give back to the community is most important thing.
Yeah. So for you, there's something, it's less of a personal thing, recovery. Yeah. It's a lot about giving back to your community as well, which I think is really important. The other thing that we thought was really important, an important part of peer support, is peer supporters having a particular attitude to their work, which is empowering and professional. So when we discussed how peer support works, we thought it's really important that peer supporters notice people's strengths and build on them. They respect the fact that people make their own choices, and ultimately you can't make somebody do something, was the main feeling. And it's important that you recognize people on the whole do what's right for themselves. Making sure that you can communicate, and earlier, Shalim, you were saying part of that's about listening.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I think part of that is just listening and, you know, expanding your knowledge, but also understanding that, you know, you're not just taking it out of the other ear and taking that advice on. I think that's crucial to you as a, you know, as society we live in, you know, and I think that's the most important thing to listen to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were also saying when we met up that it's important not to use so much jargon. I'm not sure how good a job I've done of that so far today, but you can be the judge. And breaking down some information as well. And like Shalim was saying earlier, problem solving. So having a goal and working towards a goal and having some advice and that kind of thing. All of the people in our group all worked with groups, and I know in different countries there's more peer support that happens that is individual or one-to-one, but our group was all full of people who worked with groups, so they had a lot to say about needing skills with working with groups, making sure that people feel safe and comfortable, making sure that people each have a turn to speak and feel listened to. Those were important skills that the group picked up on as well. Any other thoughts, Shalin, before I move on?
No, that's great. It's fantastic.
Okay, and then we spoke a little bit about how can we support peer supporters to do their job well. So having supervision one-to-one, like with all professionals, I guess, was a really important thing. And having encouragement to talk in sessions as well if you were less confident, or something that we discussed as being important. And also being part of an inclusive team, which was feeling part of a team, you know, people knowing what your needs are and checking that you understand everything, but also kind of just a feeling of being welcome where you are.
Can I just add something to that? It's also nice to have just kind of nice compliments to give to your PA or support workers, because it makes a big difference to their coming into work or finishing at the end of their shifts. You know, they've done a great job, but it feels great to give them a compliment at the end of their shifts or the beginning of their shifts.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we also spoke very quickly about some challenges that people can have. So that included things like just encountering people's difficult feelings can be really hard. And I know that's something you had something to say about, Shalin, when people get upset in a group.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the best thing is to kind of break the solution is to speak to them on a one-to-one level where it's private and confidential. Give them a 5-minute breather to get their thoughts running, and also to make sure they get their words in structure base. Also check on their well-being. That's the most important thing. Yeah,
definitely. And yeah, there were some other kind of considerations about when people spoke more to the non-disabled person than to the peer supporter with learning disabilities, and things like time pressure, and when people in groups don't get on. Those were all more difficult things that people needed extra support with. So in terms of researching Recovery College, the group gave some really good ideas about what needs to happen, and the clearest thing was that the research needed to include co-researchers with learning disabilities, because recovery is such a personal thing. You need people with lived experience to help understand what people are telling us. And so we had three main ideas about what we would do in the research. The first would be observation, so going to recovery colleges and reflecting on how accessible they are, looking at their websites and their materials and thinking about how accessible those are. Interviewing professionals, other peer supporters and recovery college students to think about what barriers they might have experienced or might anticipate experiencing. And the idea is that we'd use all of that information to co-design some resources to help recovery colleges include people with learning disabilities more in the future. So that's what the plan is. Hopefully we can find some funding to do the project shortly. And I think that's probably all of my time. Is it, Lisa? Yeah. So if you have any questions or any thoughts about how we might do it differently, or any dilemmas that you picked up on as I've been talking, that's all really helpful for me. Brilliant. Thank you.
I'd like to pass you back to them now, to Shalin and Tony, who will be speaking to you about the Feeling at Home project.
Okay, brilliant. So yes, it's us again, and we'll be talking this time about a research project that we've been doing since January 2020, which has been a long while, hasn't it, Shalin?
Yes, yes, yeah.
And the research project is called Feeling at Home. And it is a collaboration between a few universities and NHS trusts. So we have Deborah Chin from King's College, Shalin from Choice Support, Andy Power, who is a geographer from Southampton, myself and Katie, who's a research assistant, and we've been working with a disabilities arts organisation in Brighton and Hove called Quiet Down There. The idea for the project came from our experiences going in to people's homes, people with learning disabilities homes, in group homes, and we found that some people had very homely, cozy homes, and other people's homes felt a bit more like a clinic or a like medical kind of place. It was very different. So we were interested in finding out a little bit more about what people with learning disabilities who live in group homes, what they thought helped them feel at home or stopped them from feeling at home. So Shalim, with Choice Support, he's a quality checker. So I don't know if you want to say what that involves, Shalim.
So a quality checker means you do a lot of observational work, talking to the people that they support, and talking to the staff, doing a lot of observation on the living situation, observing any repairs, looking at the support plans, talking to the people that they support, if they're feeling at home, if they're feel comfortable in the environment, are they getting along with the community, are they doing enough activities, just a general basic, are they getting the right support in the right way, looking at the long-term aspects and making choices on how they personalize their homes and stuff with the right people.
That's great. So having Shalim on the research team, as you can imagine, has been brilliant for making our research really relevant. Like I mentioned, the question that we're asking is what helps people with learning disabilities living in group homes? So that could be supported living or a care home, to feel at home where they live, and what gets in the way. So we did that by using a method called photo voice, which is a participatory method where we give people cameras and they took photos of what helped them feel at home and what stopped them feeling at home whilst we walked around. And then we did some group sessions. So Shalim, you were doing some of the walking interviews and the group sessions, weren't you? So do you want to say what that was like?
Yeah, I did one group session in London. I think it was 8 of us. They were very excited. They were looking forward to the project. So it was very about hands-on, making sure that they understood about taking pictures, photography, angles, and looking at what makes them feel at home. So any parts of their home, of hobbies, interests, and focusing on that picture and the comfort of your own home, really. But they were all excited. They all had lovely personalities and they were very keen to do more pictures as well.
That's right. Yeah, and we had an exhibition in Brighton and Hove. It was probably about a year ago now. And we've also interviewed 25 staff and family members for their points of view about what helps people in group homes feel at home.
Yeah, and we've also had an exhibition in London as well, near the Science Museum opposite St Thomas's. So that went really well.
That's right, brilliant. So we just thought we'd tell you about some of our findings so far. So people showed us and told us that a big part of feeling at home is being able to express yourself and to show who you are in the home. So these two pictures, you can see they're really different. The one on the left is full of people, somebody's possessions that show their interests, the colours that he chose to paint his room, and some awards, some stars that you can see there that show his achievements. And the other room is quite different, and it's quite hard to tell anything about the person who lives in that room. So what we found is that it was easier to show who you are where you live in personal spaces like bedrooms, and it was a bit harder to do that in shared spaces like living rooms. But also people with more complex support needs really needed other people around them to know them really well, to be able to show who they were and to express themselves through where they lived. Yeah, so maybe you want to comment on some of these photos afterwards as well, or as we're going along.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like there was no interest in the other photo that might have high needs. So, you know, there's no choice on that person. He might have a speech aspect, so he might not be able to express his words or decision on how he could make that room very homely. I think from the other point of view, I think he is more abled, so he was more interested in, you know, soccer, football. So he's more into his playing football, watching football. You can tell by his trophies and his books and his bedding. Yeah, you can tell that if you come home from a football match, you go into your parents, your mum and dad's house. So yeah, in that point of view.
Right. So another part of feeling at home is still feeling connected with your friends and family. And so people found that very important. They would use things like their phones and their computers to make sure that they're in touch with people. And they kind of needed a welcoming environment to have people visit. And what we found is that sometimes families didn't always feel that comfortable knowing when they could visit or had a good routine around that, or they might struggle to raise any concerns with staff about care, or to feel very included in that kind of thing. I'm just aware of time, so I'm going to hurry along a little bit if you don't mind. So people also told us just how important relationships with staff were. And people told us they really liked doing things with staff. So this picture here is a picture of a shell collection that somebody went to the beach with their staff and spent some time together and brought home. And that was like a living artifact, a living thing showing the relationship between him and his staff member. But we also found that actually people unfortunately said that they had some negative experiences with staff, or that they really loved their staff, but they often left, and people were sad about that too. So that was also another really important thing. People also told us it was important to feel like they belonged in their community, like they were familiar with the places that they were living in, and that they knew people to say hello to, or they might know their neighbours. But we also found that people told us the opposite, that maybe they had some negative interactions in the community, or that they didn't really know the people that they were that they were living around, if that makes sense. Was there anything on that one, Shalin?
No, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you can see a lovely Brighton pier over there. And you know, I think this man was great. He used to have like a really strong interest in all the buses. So it was a really good example of how connected he was. So one of the main ways of communicating he'd have was to talk about his favourite bus routes. So as a support worker or as a researcher, you needed to know those buses in particular. So another thing that really came out is that people had moved homes very frequently, and they didn't have a great deal of control in that process. So they might have had to move homes quite quickly or unexpectedly, and people that kind of process really affected how people settled in and how at home they felt. And I think sometimes people kind of just got used to that in a way, and kind of explained that by just feeling like, oh, it's okay, well, at least I have a roof over my head. And that's this second quote here. There's that kind of feeling that people got used to some of these things that might affect how secure they felt where they were living. Another important part was space and ownership. So there were some really clear and explicit rules sometimes about where people could go in their homes. So this picture here is of a staff room, which was quite a strong theme in our research, the staff room. And it's a very clear example of a place that you can't go. And people thought kind of on the whole that that's okay because it protects people's personal information. And then there were other examples where there were less clear rules. There were more subtle rules about where you could go or where you couldn't go. So this other picture is a place that's been organised in such a way that it means you wouldn't really want to spend time there. It's not a comfortable place. Or so you can see it looks a bit officey. There's a mattress there. It kind of gives people the impression that's not for you. It's not where you want to hang out. But we also found that there would be staff meetings and people doing paperwork in shared places as well, which really affected, you know, the times and places that people could access. So on the whole, what we found was that people showed us that home is made up of different experiences, and those experiences that make up home are either supported or undermined by things like the objects that are around in somebody's home, the kinds of spaces and rules that are around the use of those spaces, and how staff work was organised. So Shalim, do you want to say about what we're doing next in terms of the checklist? And
we've now sent all the checklists to providers outside London, and we're just waiting for the checklist to arrive and then look at the statistics from people doing the checklist and count how many people have done it and then write up a report, which is great because it's an easy read information document, and it should be involved with the CQC Care Quality Commission. It should be part of their Care Quality Commission, because I personally, from my point of view as an inspection, I find the CQC document very confusing. There's a lot of policies and procedures, but I don't find it helpful for my job to be relevant. I find being at home more relevant, and I can use that as a great tool to use and writing reports.
That's great. Yeah, so we've developed a checklist so that people can rate their own experiences and find out which bits of home they'd like to change. And we're also developing a toolkit to help staff and residents join up together to improve their homes. Yeah, like Shalim says, at the moment we're just testing those things out. So thanks a lot for listening, and yeah, any feedback I'll be able to pass on to the rest of the research group. So, thanks.
Thank you, Tony and Shalim. Has anyone got any questions?
Gary, we've got a couple of questions in the chat. So we've got one from Daniel that says, interested to understand about how the inclusive research culture has been developed in SPFT and what can we learn from your experience?
Yeah, I think we've got a really good inclusion team. We've got Team Springwell in SBFT, who have been able to help with developing research proposals. So this one I took to them many years ago now, and they're able to offer really helpful comments about the research design and different things like that. And I think they've just made themselves so useful that, you know, I think whenever we do something research based, we wonder how we can get them involved.
Brilliant, thanks Tony. We've also, Lisa's asked if we could have a little think about questions about feeling at home. And Sammy's raised a question, which is, how do you know that people with learning disabilities are filling out, let me see, the checklist and not the staff, which is a really good question.
Yeah, I think that is a good question. So some people will need some help to fill out the questionnaire, the checklist. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're going to interview some people after they've filled out the questionnaire, so that we can test it to see if it was easy to use and if we need to change it in any way. I think going forward, it's a really important point, Sammy, that we need to be careful about how it's used, and we don't want to pass off a checklist that we think is somebody with a learning disabilities voice, but it just isn't.
Thanks, Tony.
We might have to go back to Gary to introduce the next speakers now. Thanks, Tony Shalim.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony and Shalim, that was great.
Thank you for your questions. We're now going to hear Daniel and Ben are now going to speak about building ideas for participatory research. Daniel Marsden is a senior lecturer in learning disability nursing, and Ben, a local leader who works for BMIX, East Kent Mencap Gold Project, and is a co-teacher at Canterbury Christ Church University. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. As Gary said, my name is Daniel Marsden. I'm Senior Lecturer and Professional Lead for Learning Disability Nursing at Canterbury Christ Church. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name's Ben Constable and I am a co-teacher. I am also a East Kent Mencap Gold Project rep.
Thank you, Ben. Lisa invited us to come and talk about the participatory research project we did at Canterbury Christ Church last year. Ben, can you tell us a little bit about your role within the project?
I am a experts with experience lead.
Indeed you were, and you'll see at the bottom of this slide that we've also got the names of Kathy and Vanessa and Karen, who were part of this project as well. And they are, they've given us permission to come and talk about this this piece of work today. You'll also see this picture on the right-hand side of the slide with Ben and Vanessa at the front of the room, talking a little bit about what's important about research to them. Okay, Ben, would you like to say a little bit about what the participatory research project was about?
We had 2 meetings, both at Canterbury University. We had a group of health and care professionals and a group of people with learning disabilities. We asked some questions and people wrote their answers down on sticky notes. We then moved the sticky notes around to find the theme, Kathy, Vanessa, Daniel, and I got together and wrote up a report.
Indeed, we did. And the whole point of this piece of work was to develop a shared purpose on working together on research. Now, when we took all of those sticky notes that you'll see in the top right-hand side of that slide, and we put them all into themes, we found some particular things. And one of the when we all of that analysis, we did that all together. We found that, you know, the group said the outcome of participatory research ought to be that we work together to find new ways to enable people to live happy, healthy lives with whom and where they want to, doing things they want to do, and not to be abused. You know, there were particular post-it notes on each of the each of the groups that talked about all of these things. And so that it was really important that we reflected on these in our results of what people talked about. Now, the particular outcomes of that piece of work. And would you like to take the first two?
Yeah. We got a lot of ideas for research together. We talked about these ideas at the Loud meeting. As you can see in this picture here.
Ben, would you be able to say something about the Loud meetings? What is Loud?
Learning, observing, understanding disabilities. I feel like when we group up as experts with experience, we make friends and we don't feel so lonely.
So you'll see this picture on the left-hand side here is a group of experts by experience, people with learning disabilities who come in and do some teaching, some co-teaching with us. They also come in and do some simulation work, which we might talk about in a minute, actually. And they come in and talk about how we can improve our education for people with about people with learning disabilities at Canterbury Christchurch. So yes, we did find out some particular research ideas from these groups. And we also talked a little bit about this with the Loud group. One of the important things that we've been able to do around this project is to bring participatory research as an embedded agenda item, so a regular agenda item to the Loud meeting and to the Learning Disability Education Group meeting, which is made up of providers and carers and academics. So we're now talking about participatory research on a regular basis within the university. One of the other things that we found out a lot through this piece of work was about paying experts by experience at Canterbury Christchurch. Ben, what have you learnt about being paid by Canterbury Christchurch University?
It's complicated to claim the money. I have also learned about my benefits and feel more confidence to accept the work and claim the money, the funds.
And we've been meeting recently with one of the members of the Expert by Experience strategy group who's been supporting you with making those claims, and through that partnership has realised how complicated it actually is to make some of those claims, to be able to know your password, log into the system, identify the times that you were worked and be able to then claim that money. It was a 7-stage process, as I seem to recall, and it was complicated. So I think we're going, as I understand it, that has had some impact on us being able to think about how we might pay experts by experience, particularly with people with learning disabilities in the future. And through this work, as I've kind of alluded to, we've been able to link the Loud group much closer with the Canterbury Christchurch Expert by Experience Strategy Group, which is a group that's recently been established to increase the amount of expert by experience activity that goes on within particularly our professional educational programs. What is perhaps different for Loud is that we now think about participatory research within our regular agendas as well. Ben, one of the things that you and I have been doing over the last 6 months as a result of this project, the simulated hospital admissions and our evaluation of those. Would you like to say a little bit about what's going on in this photo?
So experts with experiences get invited to the simulation hospital, and the university has nurses in training, and we both joined the session, and the nurses in training interact with experts with experience by using the hospital passports, the equipment like pulse, blood pressure, temperature, and other equipment that they use on the experts with experience person.
Excellent, thank you. Can I ask you then, what part did you play in this picture?
Sorry, say again, Daniel, please.
So this picture, this photo I've just put up on the screen hasn't got you in the photo, has it?
I am in the picture. I'm on the left, aren't I?
Oh, you are in the one on the left, but the one in the middle.
Oh, that picture, I was a co-teacher and I was interacting with the experts with experience and nurses and taking pictures of their conversations and interacting with the equipment.
So we decided that you'd take some photos of the simulated hospital admission, and then we decided we go to why are we outside Canterbury College? Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Because we invited the Canterbury College students to be invited to the simulation hospital, and because they attended the simulation, we went to go and see them at Canterbury College in their environment, and we had like a one-to-one discussion with experts with experience in a room, and asked them questions about the pictures that we took of them, and said, and what did you do in this picture? Would this make you feel confident next time you see a nurse?
So yeah, so we've got a researcher within the school. I don't think I've told you this actually, Ben. There's a lady called Nikki who works within the school, who uses a thing called photo elicitation, which is a bit like photo voice that I think was the Shalim and his colleague were talking about previously, where we took some photos. We took the photos that you took, and we went and asked people about what was going on in those photos, and what was your role in those photos, and how did you feel about that experience? And we've got a load of data from that experience to evaluate the whole simulated hospital admission. And that's something that we've co-produced. It's something that we've worked together on, isn't it, Ben?
Yes.
All the way through, from planning to where we've got to now. And that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of the participatory research project and kind of some of the outcomes. If anybody's got any questions, thank you so much for your attention. But and if anybody's got any questions, then we'd be happy to field them. And there are some of my contact details if you want to contact me for any more information.
Has anyone got questions?
Lisa's popped a question in, Gary. It says, Ben and Daniel, it would be great to hear about the research ideas that came up in your meetings.
Really interesting. We have got a slide on that if you want me to show it to you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If I actually thinking about it, if you bear with me, we produced a Padlet with all of the resources on it. I will dig that out and I will make sure that that's available so that you can have a leaf through yourselves as to some of the information that we gathered and some of the things that we looked at.
Thanks, Daniel. Any other questions? While Daniel's looking for that. I had one for you, Ben. I was interested to know, because I could see that there would be a lot of benefit for the students who were having the sessions with you, but I was interested to know whether you felt and other experts by experience felt that you gained anything from those sessions.
I think it gives people, nurses or experts with experience, when they interact, they have more confidence, they understand the layout, and if there's another session, they would have experts with experience would have more confidence to join another session. And if a disability person came in the doctor's or nurse's office without the training and they become qualified nurses, they probably go, oh, what do I do? How do I help them cope? How do I speak to them? What would make it easier for the expert experience? But because they've had the training, they have more confidence. And
yeah, thanks, Ben. That makes a lot of sense. We've got time for a quick question from Pippa. Are the simulated hospital admissions going to be part of the training for all student nurses? Did you work on this with the local hospital trust?
Yes, at Canterbury Christchurch, all BSc, all the graduate programs for adult nursing and mental health nursing currently have this simulation. We're currently looking at something equivalent for child nursing, because this doesn't necessarily doesn't cover everything that children's nursing requires. But yes, in and of itself, yes, it's available. It's also available as part of the MSc, the pre-reg MSc in nursing for adult and mental health nurses. Did we work with the local hospital trust? Yeah, so we interestingly, I was just in contact with all of them in the last kind of couple of weeks. We use the tools that come from East Kent hospitals, although we make sure that that they're aware that there are different tools available at Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells, Medway and Downs Valley. We've had the acute liaison learning disability nurses involved in those sessions. So yes, we try to involve the hospital trust wherever we possibly can with that. Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. So I think I've got a lovely comment in sort of reflection on the fantastic work, Ben and Daniel, from Anna. I'm going to hand back to Gary.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, next bit is about, I want to close the meeting with my thoughts about my thoughts. Using research to build good lives. And anybody that's adopting the good lives can use our logo. That is there. That's what that logo is for. So you, if you're going to adopt any of the stuff within there, use that logo. The process is inclusive. People with lived experience are fully involved every step of the way. People with learning disabilities are equal participants with the same control as academics. That the research will be useful and make people's lives better. No use being inclusive if the research won't make a difference. That is what is important. Next slide, please. How can we do research that matters? Think how much real life impact will this have? Involve people with learning disabilities from the very beginning. Talk to people about what is important in their lives. Use good lives to guide you. Next slide, please. Here we are. Remember, try not to lose track of what matters. Research has real power to build good lives. Only by working together can it really, truly have impact. And that's that. Short and sweet.
Very powerful, Gary. I think there's nods of agreement all round. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you everyone for coming today and sharing. And back to Lisa.
Yes, thank you everyone for being here today and offering your time to come and hear about all the different important research projects, about the Good Lives framework and the Good Lives Research Network and the Kent, Surrey and Sussex Community of Practice. Please do get in touch with us if you would like to know more. We'll certainly send out information to the Good Lives Network, and we put the link to joining that in the chat, so hopefully you were able to find it. We are at 2:30 now, so thank you once again, Gary, Learning Disability England, for hosting today. Really appreciate it.
And you can actually pass on the slides, Lisa?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. Yes, happy to do that, Gary.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, okay, well, thank you everyone, and we will say goodbye.